And then just inviting in the possibility that we are exactly where we're supposed to be, doing exactly what we were always meant to do. It's just what it looks like. I think one of the things that is so interesting to me, I was thinking about this on my drive over, that when I was, I would say, younger or in the midst of running my companies, I had the sense that there were people out there who knew more than me, had expertise or the ability to say, do it this way and it will work. And I was thinking on my drive over here that in the 5 years of kind of rediscovery, refounding, the thing that's been most valuable that I've discovered are not people with like, here's the blueprint for how to launch a successful whatever, or here's a guide to fixing your relationship. It's about tools. And the conversations I have with people and relationships are so different these days because I have discovered, I mean, people that shared tools and mindsets that could be used to build anything.
Yeah.
And even like starting a Zoom call with a meditation, I guess it could seem like woo woo or obnoxious to certain minds. I mean, that's a story that I make up. But even at that, like a tool for like calming your nerves
Yeah.
that can change what follows. So yeah, I'll just kind of open up the floor with a question. Um, and it's open ended. You can take it wherever you want. But in the last, we'll just call it 5 years since 2021 or so when we met. Um, what has changed the most about you?
Oh man. Um, yeah, what did you say we were capped at 2 hours or something today? Um,
So
no,
brevity
so
is not, yeah.
so in 2020, I had what I would describe as my real spiritual awakening, and I would define that as becoming aware of an aspect of myself, of my own consciousness, as being distinct and different from my body. That's an easy one. But then also my mind, the voice, the person inside, the self concept. And so since that moment, I mean, that turned my entire life upside down. I mean, it's one of the most disruptive. It's you go you're have all the all the momentum of your life, what you think you are, what you think you are, and everything like that. And all of a sudden, one experience, one moment, and kind of blows up all. It's kind of I think of Alan Watts, like kind of pulling the rug out from under what you think you are. But so that's been my life since 2020 is just kind of I don't, almost like a series of deaths inside, and it's been beautiful and transformative, and certainly the most fulfilling years of my life by a mile, and it keeps getting better and better and better, but also more and more challenging and less predictable, and just challenging in a whole series of different ways. So I would say that that's without a doubt the biggest thing that's changed is still kind of, and I still feel like I'm only like halfway, not even halfway, but I mean midway through that waking up process. That's a big part of the reason why I've really enjoyed uh, becoming better friends with you, because I feel like you're going through that process as well, and you're further down the road in a few different areas than I am. And so, anyway, so trying to kind of reestablish myself, who, even the self concept of who I think that I am, and then what I want to spend my life doing. Like, um, I'm tired of chasing money. I'm tired of chasing external things. I'm tired of working for people that I, may not want to further enrich. Um, and and so really trying to kind of drop into, okay, what is the deepest layer of my being that I've experienced, my soul, whatever you want to call that? What is it here to do? What does it want to do? And how can I do that in a way that's actually fulfilling to me and contributes something to the world, helps other people, and yeah, fulfill my part of the giant play that we're that we're all in here.
And yeah, I mean, everything you said, I see reflections of in my own life, and that idea of having an awakening or some moment that tips you off that there's way more going on than the surface
Yeah,
level culture that we grew up and were taught about in school or see on the news or just is culturally available. And then it's like going around and around this spiral
yeah,
staircase, like revisiting the same points
yep,
over and over and over, but maybe just like with a few stories in between, like literal stories. And it's funny because one of my heroes, I guess, who also has his own version of this and story, is our friend Vince. And I
yeah,
remember he told me once, because we were talking, I was like, man, I cannot believe I'm back in this situation again. Like, holy shit, like I understand this, I see the pattern, like logically it all makes sense. But here I am, like feeling these big emotions, blowing up my
yeah,
life, whatever. And he said, in my experience, when you start to notice the pattern, it means you're about halfway. I was like, shit, only halfway? Like there's been so much that has gone into just accepting myself and this, that, and the other. And that was a good reminder that there's no piece of information or a weekend seminar or
yeah,
even an epiphany experience that can jump you to the top of the stairs. I don't even know what's at the top
yeah,
of the stairs. Maybe you just like fall into oblivion and crawl up another staircase. Or it also reminds me, I think it's a Joseph Campbell saying, but he's like, midlife is getting to the top of the ladder you've been climbing and realizing it was against the wrong wall.
yeah. Love that. Yep,
Yeah.
yeah. I've loved that same thing with even the name Refound and whatnot. I was thinking about that like before this call of like what am I just even just selfishly interested in the what kind of conversations. I'm really interested in people that have with the full extent of their psyche, their effort, their everything have built whatever that thing they came out of childhood thinking was going to fulfill them, whether it was money or success or this or relationship or whatever it was. And then whether they got it or whether they didn't get it, you figure out that it doesn't do what you thought it was going to do. And and then everything falls apart one way or another. And then people who've gotten up from that process and kind of consciously rebuilt what what was actually meaningful to them from a much deeper place. Yeah, I love that quote. I hadn't heard that from Joseph Campbell, but I couldn't agree more.
Yeah, and that's cool. A good segue into Refound because man, what a journey from seeing, I mean, the way that it felt to me was like my baby that I had born and created and put so much energy into, by which I mean the company that I started,
Yeah,
seeing that just fall victim. I mean, this is the story, and even these words I've changed. I've like burned my journals. I'm really trying to let go of this story. But when I'm compelled to tell it, I'm always telling it from this way of just like, my baby was like ripped from my arms
yeah,
and abused and literally sold into corporate slavery where it withered and died. And like, I have so much pain around that. And, what else can you do but get back out in the world and do something else? And the idea behind Refound was that I've tried all of these little pieces of reassembly, like, the crypto YouTuber thing was one little reflection. I've done a bunch of consulting with small businesses. I'm an artist. I'm, now doing kind of like a more of a trade that I'm learning. Like all of these pieces are trying to like be reassembled into a new version of myself. But this idea of Refound is sharing again like the tools and the mindsets
yeah,
more than, I mean, what I see, and not to like judge other people what they're doing, but I feel like a lot of what is sort of presented in the Instagram or influencer space are these personalities that are kind of
yeah,
like gurus or like cult figures that like, oh, if I follow this guy and like go to their like men's retreats and like read this book, like then I'll have it
yeah,
figured out. And it seems a lot more like a Frankenstein where like by all means go to the retreat, listen to the guru, but realize that behind every guru is this same story.
Yeah.
and the same like human um, experimentation and pain and lamenting. And yeah, Refound, I hope, can just be
Yep.
like a vehicle for conversations with people who are in it, where we can all just like listen and gather these little nuggets and gems of wisdom.
Yep.
Because my assumption is a lot of people, especially with, the current climate and, literal climate and political climate and, how hard it is to be a small business these days, how hard it is to just, have a family and go buy bread when it's $8 a loaf or whatever.
Yeah.
Like, I think there's a lot of universality in people trying to figure out, okay, I thought I was on this path. I even thought our country was on this path, or the future was this thing. And now all of a sudden we're like looking at this other, mirror, mirror universe.
Yeah.
And it's like, what are the big ahas or the big mindsets, tools, etc., that allow every day to be completely chaotic and changing, but be like centered in it?
I completely agree with that. And the one of the things that kind of came up for me when you were talking that uh, I would have loved at the beginning of my, waking up process too, is to know how incredibly messy it is, right?
Hmm.
Like it's because it's so easy to, read these accounts from just like really, really great, awakened beings or whatever, and just, oh, you have to. There's this meme I think about that I saw like years ago that I felt perfectly encapsulated, and it was like what you think a spiritual awakening is like, and it has this a person being like descending from the clouds, and what it's actually like is like curled up in the fetal position in the corner crying. You know what I mean? And it's that's much more the experience of like even processing. You can think about birth trauma, for example, like not whatever a doctor did to you or whatever it is, literally the experience of being born, regardless of what that was, that separation, that ripping out of oneness, that impression is so deep in there. It is so traumatic for that child, and that child grasping for safety after that. Um, the only way to release that at all, because I know you've had experiences like that too, is literally when it releases to any degree, it's a physical release. It's not something you think about, or it's not a peaceful thing. It's literally you re-experiencing the pain that you experienced as a newborn child, right? It's traumatic and weird as an adult. It's really weird to go, oh my God, that was in there. That was stored in my being this whole time, influencing things that I was doing. And I would have loved if if somebody would have just like real talk explained that versus like I feel like it's so easy, and this is probably more of a male thing too, to like the philosophy, right? And I
Hmm.
love Alan, like I loved Alan Watts, especially. I still love Alan, right? But like early in the day, but it's sometimes it can be so deceptive because of how clean words can be and how
Hmm.
clean ideas can be. And even Alan's attempt, brilliant, in some ways better, I feel like, than any philosopher at kind of undercutting words and ideas, trying to guide you to it. But even with that, I just in my own experience, I turned his attempts to get rid of concepts, I turned those back into concepts, right? I turned those back into things like that. So yeah, I would love for it to be like um, for both of us to further our own awakening journey and things like that, but also as a guide or way to help other people in terms of um, resources, just like real life experiences in a way that's not like Instagram perfect, but like, hey, nobody's awakening looks like that. It's gonna be a lot more mud covered and blood covered than you think it's going to
Yeah,
be.
with collateral damage.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, like you're gonna try to do this and you're gonna fuck it up terribly, And the
Yeah.
process of getting up from that and rebuilding that, it's just a really important part of that process. Um, I should have asked, are we cursing in here, or are we not? Is
Oh, fuck
there?
yeah.
Okay, all right, just making sure. I didn't know if we were doing like a PG-13 thing. So
Whatever comes is the right thing. Man, so I have to share that idea of, the messiness. Oh my gosh, it's so real, and especially when there's another person involved or other people,
yeah,
is one of the real harbingers of my rediscovery was that it was while my partner, my wife, my, girlfriend going back to when she was 19 and I was 20, we basically were kids when we met, and then we became these adults that had these operating systems. And then it was actually her impetus to start like, well, this is not what I want. I'm almost 40, like self-discovery that then kicked off mine. And then like we're these two strangers to each other all of a sudden, like rediscovering not only who the other person is, but ourselves in real time. And yeah, I mean, not only is it not like descending from the clouds in illuminated light, it's like taking everything that you thought was core to your being or your personality or your worth and putting it in a shopping cart that you don't even own, and I don't know, lighting it on fire, pushing it into the sea.
Pushing
Like
off a
I don't
cliff was
think
what I was thinking.
pushing off a cliff, yeah, like it's so funny that the things that I used to hold on to so tightly as like the proof positives that I was like I was smart or I was funny or attractive or uh worthwhile. It wasn't until those things were completely like
Yeah.
murdered in front of me
Yep.
that I was able to move on. And yeah.
I could not agree more with any of that. And that getting comfortable with like the sensation of dying, right? Because as you go through those different phases and those different, people talk about, your ego death, which is like I kind of hate when people say that, but parts of it d- die over and over and over again as you grow. They have to die, and that process of them dying, they don't want to die, and they don't want to integrate whatever it is, and so parts of it um, will really resist that to the point of freaking out, of creating massive hormonal and chemical changes in your body to try to get you to stop because they don't think that it's going to be safe on the other side of this thing. Again, not like making the ego the enemy by any point. It's a child inside. It needs to be taken care of and shepherded and things like that. But that sensation of dying over and over and over again, of learning how to try to get used to that in a way that there's no way around that. If you resist that, you don't change, you don't grow, you stay stuck at whatever that point is. And again, that's not like a philosophic thing. It's not like you can think your way out of it. You can't like stay in your mind and be all zen about it. Like your body has to go through those changes, and those changes are oftentimes very unpleasant, very disruptive, and terrifying. Frankly, terrifying. And I know you've had experiences too of just again, it's like stuff that you've um, well, I mean, you and I have talked about this, but like some of the stuff that are just normal experiences that most everybody has on like the spiritual path, especially being in the Western part of the world, you don't really hear about. And so when they
Mm,
start to happen, you feel like you're either losing your mind or you're like the first person on earth to ever have this kind of experience. And
totally.
like, and like if somebody would have told me, any number of these insane experiences, I would have thought they were crazy at the beginning. I did think people were crazy. I thought they were making it up, or
Mm,
glad you enjoyed your mushroom trip, or whatever. Um, and just these anyway. There's so many of them too, and there's just over and over and over again. The further you get in that spiral, the more often those things tend to happen. And anyway, it's such a different experience too. I'm fortunate in that I've had a few, and you now as well, but a few people close to me that have been kind of going through their own awakenings at the same time. So like none of us really it wasn't quite as isolating as it could have been.
mm.
Like a lot of people, when they'll have those like early spiritual experiences or something like that, you go to a psychiatrist or whatever. If they don't understand what's going on, they'll prescribe you Haldol, and they'll put you in a you know psychiatric facility or something like that. And so anyway, having other people uh either that are going through the same kinds of things that you are, or that have ideally already gone through those experiences and can help you kind of stabilize as you go through those. I feel like it's just such a vital thing. Like the difference between awakening to your true nature and being a beautiful giving loving service to the world, versus ending up in a psychiatric facility.
Yeah.
It's literally, it happens to people. So yeah, um,
Yeah.
more realness around that experience. Those
Oh,
experiences, I
totally.
feel like,
I'm thinking like if someone is like just at the cusp of their unraveling and they were to like hear this conversation, like it's a terrible sales pitch, you
oh
know.
yeah,
It's like
exactly,
it's like,
exactly,
yeah, come on over to the other side, be an awakened being. It is like suffering for years in a spiral house of mirrors, but there's growth, there's
it's
ups, there's
incredible
downs.
though.
It's incredible.
It's incredible
And
though.
and man, I can't help but reflect, like, I think this is a common experience. I think so with people that have like early awakenings, especially because my first experience that was, I would call it that. I mean, I've always called it like a moment of cosmic consciousness or,
Yeah.
an epiphany or a spiritual um, rebirth or something. I was, I think, 18 or 19 in high school, like right between senior year and going to college. And I had a bunch of experiences with cannabis, but one in particular that just like, the scales fell off my eyes, as they say. And I
Yeah.
remember like on this camping trip and all my friends, we'd all been up late drinking and being idiots. And that morning we like woke up kind of hungover, but like smoked some pot. And then I was like walking up this hill behind my friends, and I just saw this environment and this landscape as this growing, recycling, the dead trees with the living trees right next to them. I just had this moment of like, holy shit, this place is amazing. Like, the light was this luminous, like from inside me. It like absolutely shattered my perception of what I, at that point, I thought
Yeah.
was real or important. Because then I was, before that experience, I was on this one track, very like ego driven, success oriented, whatever. And then after that, I was like, this is all I want to focus on. Like,
Yeah.
I
Yep.
know what this experience is. I've seen God, whatever, it wasn't
Yep.
what anyone had ever said God was, but I was there, present with that force. And man, throughout my whole college experience, I thought I was insane
Yeah.
because I didn't find anybody else who could relate with me on that level with those experiences. Maybe I could have found some old hippies or people from the 60s that had done a bunch of LSD or something.
Yeah.
But in my environment, there were academics that just wanted to, teach from textbooks. And I started to find like Joseph Campbell was huge, and comparative mythology. Those were like the only clues I was given. But I, at a point, genuinely thought that I was like a messiah whose job it
Hmm.
was to like wake up everyone else to just the depth and beauty and power of this place. And yeah, it's remarkable that, I mean, that was only 15, 20 years ago. And it feels like in today's world, not only is there way more access to those ideas and concepts and people that have, had those experiences, but anyone can just go get cannabis now or psilocybin or go to a dark retreat or go to a float tank or go to, so there's like this boom in the human collective consciousness in these directions. And I guess that's also part of my interest, is just being like a voice in the conversation and saying like, yeah, here's my field notes. I mean, I've lost any concept that I'm like a messiah, because I think we're all our own messiah in a way,
Yeah.
like discovering that God consciousness within. Yeah, it's really funny because when I think about it, I don't know whether I'm more interested in like helping small business owners like just get clear with themselves so that they can like actually solve their challenges and move forward. Like a lot of people I talk to around Refound is about that. It's like, oh, hey, like, yeah, I've grown a medium-sized company and
Yeah.
exited or whatever. Like, let's, here's some cool tools to help you make decisions or whatever. Versus like the conversation about the deepest of the deep, the farthest in, the farthest out.
See, this is why I love talking with you, because like I feel the exact same way of like there's my human elements I love business. I love investment stuff. Like it's really, really fun game to me that I would love to um, be involved in really supporting and helping grow something that I really believe in, or maybe several things. Um, but but there's that's all kind of what I really sit down, what actually lights me up to, in terms of curiosity or what I want to get closer to. That's all secondary to why the hell are we talking about anything else
Hmm.
other than this, right? Like it's the source of everything. It's also it's so insane. It's like the closer you get to it, it's obliterates the logical mind. It's just absolutely beyond any human conception. It's the most incredible thing. Just every time I've touched elements of it, I just come back of why the hell are we talking about anything else? Why are we doing anything else? Nothing else matters but that. That's the only thing that's actually going on. Everything else is this dream state, this illusion state, which literally is what quantum physics says too. It's the exact same thing. Um, but I thought about something you said earlier too, just that I feel like is really you mentioned the whole kind of like terrible sales pitch around the awakening process. But I love that, right? Because I feel like um that's why most of, like, I don't know, awakening conversations or whatever it is, and Instagram and awakening and stuff like that, it's again it's just creating another idol. It's just
Hmm.
creating like another illusion. It's just creating another thing to like chase and worship and everything like that. And I've certainly done that, a ton myself, um despite my best efforts. But that real process is just, it's so like organic and visceral, and it's not like you doing it, it's like it's happening to you. And yeah, and just in some way being a part of helping to support other people who may not have the resources or support. um Again, I've got, you know my
Hmm.
partner and a really close therapist friend of mine is two ladies I'm very, very close to. And man, if they hadn't been there during like a handful of those things, I don't know what I would have done. Because you
Hmm.
come out the other side of a lot of these experiences, and your ego wants to grab onto it. It wants to grab onto the experience. It wants to make a story. It wants to make it mean something, and it wants to build a new identity on top of the other experience. And that you start to really like understand how you get these cult personalities, and like these cult leaders, and all kinds of just like insane, spiritually oriented behavior. People that have had really, really genuine experiences with these deep states, and they come out the other side, and then the ego grabs onto it, and they believe they're the Messiah now, and they come out and cause all kinds of damage
Hmm.
to people's lives. Um, so anyway, uh, it's
Dude,
quite
and
a trip. It's quite a
yeah,
trip, man.
and I have to say that, God, when I, my younger days, and I'm talking when I was talking about, college and feeling so lonely in these things, I was reading books by, um, everyone from Timothy Leary to Terrence McKenna to Aldous Huxley, and like, but it was all these men, quite honestly,
Yeah,
that were, creating this like self reaffirming concept that was about like the hero's journey, and this kind of masculine, going out, getting the fire and bringing it back to the people, or
yeah,
um, and I felt in that kind of like loneliness and isolation. I'm looking, actually, I have like my little bookshelf over here, and I see like the Tao Te Ching, and like those types of things were just like giving me
yeah,
more little puzzle pieces to assemble in my notebooks as like a new, concept that I was going to come and bring to everyone. And in this most recent like unraveling, like I said, it really started with my partner, with
yeah,
Kayla, and that feminine experience and wisdom, and like I think now of like the Hindu image of Kali, who's like
yeah,
the mother and the destroyer, who like chops people's heads off and makes a belt. Like there is a ruthlessness
yeah,
and a relentlessness in the female, that like to do it only in like a masculine container, isolated. I mean, those are super helpful. There's few of them in this culture, like a true like men's group,
yeah,
men's circle kind of thing. That's super important. But like I'm just aware that it's like us two guys here talking about these experiences, and for me to really be honest, like I've been supported by so many amazing women who have a
Likewise.
very different like approach to things. Like I think men are a lot more like clingy and like protective and like, oh, I need this baby. And you know, a female, at least in my experience, can get to this point of just like embracing the darkness, embracing the
Yeah.
death and the emotions and these things that to me are like, ah, like low vibration. I want to be high vibe. I want to be flying in the sun and like feeling all these great feelings and like it's the women in my life that are like, no, let's really sit with this. Let's be as
Yeah.
super uncomfortable, you know, kill your babies. And a lot of the you know, female mythological characters are that. They're like, as much as we want to glorify, you know, the beauty and the feminine and like that kind of young, you know, flowering kind of energy, they also have this like they're the ones that tend to the sick. They're the ones that tend to the decaying and yeah, it's also allowed me, quite frankly, in the last 5 years to welcome in my feminine side and just
Yeah.
like get comfortable with those energies and those emotions and those like energies that in the past scared the shit out of me, like were just
Yep.
evidence that something was wrong. And yeah, I think there's something to, you know, the next turning of human doing being a break from this strictly patriarchal kind of I'm thinking of like James Cameron Avatar, where you know it's always the like white man who like comes to the
Yeah.
indigenous people and like rescues them. I think it is going to be way messier, way you know more things dying, like
Yeah.
death and rebirth come hand
And
in
that's,
hand.
yeah. And that's, again, it's like way more real. You know, it's kind of like when people like will fantasize about a time in history where things were better. And it's like, please show me the time in history where
Yeah.
things were not insane. Um, and I completely agree with that too. I mean, just the role and influence of just really wise, strong, embodied women in my life through this process. I mean, invaluable because also the first kind of male tendency. I don't know if this was yours too. It was certainly mine. That first kind of I guess kind of awakening moment, which for me happened during COVID at a time, completely sober, a time of intense, just really, really intense stress, and I like split from my body, and I this disembodied consciousness, just like a near death experience, watching this neurotic guy walk up the stairs to his house and try to trying to control, fix, protect everything in his life and people around him and all this kind of stuff like that, and just feeling who the hell is this guy? What? All of a sudden, it wasn't me anymore. All of a sudden, it was very clear that it was not me. And then coming back, after a little, I don't know how long that was. Then coming back into this person, and now all of a sudden, there's this immense sensation of I'm trapped. I'm stuck in this thing. I got to get out. I got to go up. I got to go this. I got to go meditate. I got to get out of this thing. Through whatever means necessary. And so it's kind of that like trying to go up to get away from being a human, right? And I feel like that's a super like just a lot of the male friends that I have that are on similar journeys and things like that, like the really really common, and it's like trying to escape life and the inherent
Mm.
unpredictability, kind of chaotic energy that life can have, beautiful, incredible, but also very unpredictable, which is inherently feminine. All of life is inherently feminine energy, and trying to escape that and then go like essentially like live in the woods where you can just kind of meditate and nothing bothers you and then think you're enlightened, right? Because you're not being bothered by anything because nothing's happening. And I feel like that's one of the biggest things that the women close to me have really helped whenever I've gone to do that. God, they've saved me decades of my life that I could have spent chasing that road that goes nowhere, right? I know men that are, quite a bit older than me that have done that, that are still trying to do that and still like blame women for not having their peace or whatever. And you're around them for a little while and you're like, oh man, you know, they're not the problem, my friend. Like you're just running away from life itself. And anyway, and that's like a whole different process of like being able to be like at peace when everything's okay and you're by yourself and you're whatever it is. or on, psychedelic journey or whatever somebody's doing, completely different from being able to have even a fraction of that when life is really happening, when the chaos of life is happening, when challenges are happening, when you feel like you're dying again for the 800th time,
Mhm.
um, that to me is much more, um, you know, real enlightenment, real connection through life, not escaping it.
Totally. Yeah. I mean, I have that experience every time I go to a hot yoga class, and by the end of it, I'm just like, oh my gosh, everything makes sense. Like I just have such clarity of thoughts.
Yeah,
And then without fail, by the time I'm like halfway to the locker room to change back into my clothes, like that brain is gone. I'm back in it. I'm getting calls and stressful things, and I'm like, like, man, like it really isn't something you can hang on to. Like and I don't know, I don't know how interesting this is, but it's been my experience lately that, gosh, I've done so much of this stuff now that it's almost boring. Like I've had these states of like calm consciousness like so often that in the old days or whatever, it was like, whoa, like I've gotten through to another level, or like this
yeah,
experience was huge, or and now it's like that's less interesting than, man, I don't even know. Then I guess what's most interesting for me right now is being in enough balance that I can every day face, it's even like the wrong metaphor, like face the world sounds like it's this externality that I have to like, you know, um, almost in a combative way, like face my opponent, but just like every day wake up with excitement to breathe and eat and be with the people I'm around, and just like being in a pattern or a frequency that allows for, I don't even know how to describe this. Really interesting. Like I'm not so interested in like, oh man, I can't wait to go do DMT again, or oh man, I can't wait to go do this, ayahuasca in the jungle again, or I can't wait to, have this amazing
yeah,
meditation again, or I think this is a common experience, I guess, for people that are in these like states of mind, is like, oh, I'm here and like, oh, I'm back. Oh, I'm here and oh, I'm
yep,
back. Oh, I'm here.
yep,
And now what I want is just like, okay, I've been in both places. What's in the middle?
yeah,
And what, has enough excitement and, calmness or whatever to just be, and even sustainable is the wrong word. I don't know. It's like, what do you do when you've already traveled the whole world? And
yeah,
granted, I haven't traveled the whole world, but like, how can you then come home and just be really comfortable in your home? Like,
yeah,
that's what I'm trying to do presently, is like separate from these grandiose ideals of, starting something magnificent, or attaining Buddhahood, or I don't know, whatever my old ambitions might have been. And now it's like, how can I be really comfortable? Not even comfortable. That's the thing. Like it's kind of failing with words, because it's more of like a lived essence or like a vibration than it is like a set of concepts, because those are always changing. There, as soon as, like you said earlier,
yeah.
like as soon as you pick up something new, like, oh, this is it, this is useful. Like life comes around, like smacks it out of your hand. Like, oh, I was really attached to that one, but okay. Like, oh, and here's another one. Like, oh,
That
smack.
that was
Okay,
going to be the
I
insight that
like
freed
that
me,
one.
though. Uh,
Yeah. So it's like, um, yeah, it's like kind of living in the wilderness. Like being as unattached to your life and the elements in it as you would be like in a campground that you knew you might be leaving at any moment.
yeah,
I'm
yep.
having a real hard time putting this into words. I think that's,
I
reflect on
I
that.
think I might. I think I'm with you because it's really essentially like wanting to be, or at least what I'm hearing is essentially like really wanting to be deeply here, deeply with what's happening right now, um, and essentially be fulfilled in that moment and not wanting anything else to be happening. Like what do you do when there's nowhere to go? Is that essentially what we're like, what
Yeah.
you're approximating, or am I missing
But even
something
like
on
to
that?
use the words free, like has this judgment, or like kind of like a value that it's like, you know, preferentially, good, comfortable, freedom,
Yeah,
presence, like. And it's more like, how can I exist without as much stickiness to thoughts or expectations or ideals? And I think, a lot of this we talked about came from the surrender experiment when I reread that.
Yeah, love that
And
part.
I mean, we've had some conversations about that particular book. I hated it when I first read it because it was like too early in my journey. It was like right after I lost my company and like this whole
Yeah,
story was unfolding. And I was like, fuck this guy whose life went perfect because
yeah,
he let go. Like, I'm letting go and I'm getting kicked in the ass.
yeah,
But then when I reread it, it's just like this one nugget of like, how can I let go of my preferences enough to let life bring me what, not even what it wants to, but what, there's like a higher self that I
yeah,
have that is aligning all of these things. And if I would just get out of the way and
yeah.
accept it or embrace it, then, things can shift. And so that's kind of what I've been doing. I went from starting Refound and having all of these big ideas with you. You helped me prototype a number of things for Refound, but that was still this kind of like ambition, like Ryan's cool, he's got all this experience and he's gonna like, this is in my mind, like go back
You're
on
pretty cool.
YouTube
I
and
like
like
you.
grow, yeah, whatever. But now like I'm literally working, 4 or 5 days a week as like an hourly laborer installing wallpaper. And I'm like, schlepping buckets around and scraping walls and setting up ladders and like, and there's this level of contentment that I have just never felt in my whole life because I that was always like beneath me or a waste of time. How can I spend 8 hours a day, I don't know, scraping walls in rich people's bathrooms versus being in a studio like making art? And
Yeah.
but there's something so like profoundly liberating in just like, okay, this is what's apparently happening.
Yep.
and I don't know how to like explain that to people other than like what we think we want for ourselves might not actually
Yeah.
be the best thing for ourselves.
Yeah.
And that concept, I have it written down somewhere, but I think I can paraphrase it from the surrender experiment. It's like, um, do whatever is presented to you with 100% of your
Yep.
energy and being as if it was given to you by the universe itself because it was,
Yep.
without any expectation for, what rewards or outcomes it will have. So that's been kind of the experiment, and it's led to this like indescribable state that I'm noodling around of like, I don't have a checklist of things that I need to accomplish to be happy in a day. I'm just like waking up and doing the thing that is mine to do with faith that it will just like bring me to the next moment.
Yeah.
And it's, yeah, it's utterly different
I
from
mean
anything I've ever done.
that whole description, I mean, it was basically the Bhagavad Gita right there of like do
Hmm.
what's in front, do what's asked of you. I mean, that's like I think about the beginning with Arjuna and Krishna, and Arjuna doesn't want to fight the war, and and he doesn't want this, he doesn't want the battle, he doesn't want whatever, and Krishna literally says, he says, fight your war. Like there's this is what life's asking. I know you don't want to do it. I think it's even like there's no greater glory for a warrior or something than a battle unasked for, because it's not like some
Hmm.
it's not like you pushing some more on somebody. This is really what life's actually asking of you. And anyway, no, I completely get what you're talking about. In fact, it's something that I'm actively trying to get closer to, because I feel like you live much closer to that than I do. And plus one to the surrender experiment for anybody listening to, that was my favorite book of all time. I've read it
Hmm.
probably 6 or 7 times. It was so invaluable to me, like especially those first kind of couple years of just trying to get my bearings on what the hell's happening in my life. And it was literally like it was like as soon as I started reading that book, it was like every part of my soul lit up and went, this
Hmm.
is the path. This is the path. And again, if I would have read it when I was younger, I thought that when I was reading it the first time, like if somebody would have given me this book earlier on, I would have hated this guy, because I would have misunderstood what surrender meant. It would have, because it's
Hmm.
people think like, oh, it just everything went so perfect for him. No, it didn't. His like his marriage fell apart. This fell, he had all these huge challenges, but I'm not gonna spoil anything. Like later on in the book, there's crazy stuff that happened. Like that would have been hell experience for a lot of people. Um, and anyway, but it's that book was that gave me the most kind of like personal, um, just like real life model of how to actually make decisions and deal with uncertainty. I think about like
Mm.
there's an Alan Watts quote that I loved that was basically you kind of set yourself free in life when you realize there's nothing you can do about life and there's nothing you cannot do about it. Meaning like you essentially have to do something, and whatever you do is going to be wrong in some sense. So there's no getting it perfect. So you have to do something, and so you can let go of this whole idea of right, wrong, perfect, not, whatever, and then just kind of try to guide those decisions. And so the surrender experiment and having that idea of letting life guide your decisions, of like life knows more than you do.
Mm.
Um, Even with, I think about investment stuff, like the market's smarter than you. The market's smarter than any one of us. It's the collective consciousness of billions of people around the world. It knows more than you do. Are you going to fight with it? Are you going to fight with what it's doing? Or are you going to say, okay, it's winter now. I'm going to deal with winter rather than trying to, you know, make it be spring or summer or something like that.
Totally. Man, yeah, I'm also thinking that in that um in that framework, the other part that has been just like a wrecking ball to my previous concepts has been going into this realm of content, I would call it, that is about um, the I will say the true nature of consciousness, or um, I guess I'll be more direct. So when I listened to the telepathy tapes for the first time and just went on that little journey of discovery of what at first sounded to me like kind of crazy fringe, oh, like autistic kids are telepathic. Like, all right, that's just like weird. Like, that's always been in this little like side filing cabinet of just like crazy shit. And there's probably some truth to it, but it's like it's not scientific and it's not grounded in anything. But going in the front door with telepathy tapes, and then how that has expanded into all of this research and all of these experts that are, what I previously thought of as like woo woo or crazy. um, there's another podcast that's called Where Is My Mind? It's a lot of the same content, but if you boil it all down, it gets to this concept that unlike we were taught in this scientific Western world, that it's all material and material structures then create places where, consciousness can happen. Like the brain is this computer that generates
Yeah,
consciousness. It flips the whole model on its head, and consciousness is the ground being of
yeah,
everything, and the brain was actually formed by consciousness. So even when you talk about like the market, like that is a literal expression of consciousness. It's not
yeah,
just the net product of all these material
yep,
interactions. It's like and the point is like when I can regard the universe and everything in it as being made of the same stuff as dreams, or the the consciousness of the Godhead creator, or that is a fundamentally different way to interact with and relate with the universe than my thought before of being like in this body and this like
yeah,
isolated consciousness that like wants these things and is being battered around by these other consciousness elements or whatever.
yeah,
I think it's so valuable because it forces everything to be re-examined.
yeah,
Every mythology, every philosophy, every method of self-inquiry changes once we realize that like we're all in this same stream of consciousness, and we're just different little whirlpools and eddies and ripples that are all interconnected, and that like literally you and I are capable of sharing thoughts
Yeah.
that, we've talked before about like remote viewing and those types of things
Yeah.
that people for forever, it's a part of being human. Like you can sit in one spot with your eyes closed and see another part of the world because it's all in the same like ocean of consciousness. uh, yeah, that also has been one of the most transformational like paradigm shifts that I think is like, for me at this point, foundational. And it sucks because like we talked about, like new concepts, a new stack of ideas that can also be debased. But for this like current transition or whatever, the yeah, listening to the telepathy tapes, the Where Is My Mind podcast, and just that like vein of inquiry has completely reoriented um, my approach.
Yeah, there, and it's so fascinating to me also, like that whole kind of ground of being and these things that sound really abstract and like, oh, it'd be nice to interact with the world that way. That's a nice belief or whatever. But then when you actually get a glimpse of that, right? And there are people who live in those, for thousands of years that have stabilized in those states. But when it's like, oh, they're not making it up. The in awakened beings, every continent on the planet for thousands and thousands of years, no contact with each other, same conclusion. It's like physics, right? It's literally like physics, and that there are these energy, there are these things that are just fundamentally happening, and man, it's just it's such a trip. It's just absolutely wild. I thought about when you were talking about coming out of your experiences, and then early on where you're like, I have to tell everybody this. Like people have to know. I felt the exact same way. Like I was so obnoxious about it with anybody that would listen. You're just kind of like, no, 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 but you don't get it. This is they're actually, you know what I mean? Like all the stages and everything, like they're actually talking about a real thing. And man, I like, gosh, I've read so many, ancient texts and stuff like that by this point. But like, it's so fascinating to go back and at least in my experience, the Hindus pretty much figured everything out like 6,000 years ago. Like it's unbelievable, unbelievable. You can back read the Yoga Sutras of Patanjali and everything. They didn't just map it out. They mapped out the steps on the way to get there, the way that consciousness itself evolves, the kind of abilities that start to just naturally arise in people. And they even say, don't seek out these abilities. Bad things
Totally.
happen to people who seek out these
Yeah.
abilities because it's your ego wanting to, seek out these, superpowers or whatever. But that these are just natural things that arise. And it's just absolutely, it's not, at a certain point it almost feels silly to even talk about it because it's so absurd. It's just so incredible and so absurd at the same time. um it's a completely different experience of life. It's a completely different experience um of existence, of yourself. I can't even imagine living the life that I would have lived if those awakening things didn't
Mm.
happen, or if people would have been there and said that didn't happen, whatever it was, or you know what I mean, suppressed that. Um, and like people have a near death experience and nobody believes them. They're just like, oh, that's great, you died, whatever. And and you know what I mean, or they'll like, or not even trying to do it in a dismissive way, but just like they don't get it. They haven't experienced that for themselves, so they don't understand it. Um, what a massively different experience of life that is. It's just, again, it's unbelievable. I feel like if this whole thing that we do, the whole podcast series or whatever it says, um, like if that helps one other person wake up or get curious enough to reach out to that, or they had an experience or whatever it is, like that's worth it to me. Like that's
Mm.
completely worth it if that helps one person. So anyway, yeah,
Or
completely
nobody,
agree with you.
like,
Could be
yeah.
nobody. I hope it helps
Well, like,
somebody.
yeah, I think what's so interesting is that it feels like right on time, like if this century so far was a script for a really interesting movie, like how interesting is it that all of these things are like converging at one kind of point where we're having these kind of conversations, and there's almost a critical mass of people that are realizing that the rules to the game are not actually the rules
Yeah.
to the game. Like what's going to happen next? And I really see that like there was almost no hope in the past, at least for me when I think about it. Well, I don't know quite what I'm saying. It's like I could not have sent all this information back in time to my 20-year-old self and had any hope that it would land me anywhere other than the
Yeah,
psych
agreed.
ward, you know?
Yeah,
Because
agreed.
because that it, you know, because the rules of the game, I'm just going to keep calling it that. I'm picturing like a monopoly board, you know, like we're all in this global culture and the rule book states, oh, it looks like I'm lagging a little bit. You hear me right?
Yeah, I can hear you, but there's a little bit of a
Okay.
lag.
Yeah, the rule book states like, you have to go around this board, you have to pass go, you have to collect dollars, you have to, like there's so many constraints. And even, going a level higher, it's like, and you're a body sitting around this board game, and someday you're going to die, and, you have to do this, that, and the other, or you will be sick, or, whatever. Like there's this very rigid set of rules that have been played with and talked about so that even when we were talking about a near death experience or an Amazonian shaman, I've read about all of these things for years, but it was always in that same paradigm of like, well, we're all just here, we're all going to die, and look at all these interesting things that happen in the meantime. So anyway, the fact that we're here in this kind of critical moment planetarily and the rules of the game are changing and
Yeah,
people are more and more understanding that, oh, we might not actually die. This might be my millionth go around, and they might all be happening at the same time. And it really might be what I decide is going to happen next that happens next. And I know you've been, in the Joe Dispenza community and seen some of those
yeah,
people that like have, end stage critical
yep,
cancer, terminal cancer, and then just like decide like, nope, that's not my story. And then everything shifts to match that intention.
yep,
And what a different game, what a different set of rules. And it's almost like a new frontier. And so that's what's also really interesting in the refound. I think we actually started talking about this, at least in my like timeline. I was still in that previous framework, playing that other game, and refound to me was like, oh, this is a way that I can monetize my knowledge as someone who's, started a business and blah blah blah. Now it's more like, holy shit, like what are we refinding? What are we rediscovering
yeah,
about who we actually are that can not give us another like method for running a business or
yeah,
doing self-inquiry, but like rediscover a set of rules by which we and others, individually want to operate by that flips the whole script.
yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I couldn't agree with that more because I mean it's a completely different experience of life of I'm this little cosmic accident that's isolated in the world and everything's trying to kill me and I've got this tiny little bit of time and then I'm just going to be, obliterated for forever. That's a very different life versus I'm miraculously some kind of self-aware consciousness that's currently living in this body, in this mind and everything like that, but has probably lived in a lot of them and is on a much larger journey. This whole thing that's happening around us is so much larger and so much more intelligent than some, cosmic fluke that that goes nowhere and does nothing. I guess in a sense, the universe isn't going anywhere. But but it's just such a deeper, more profound, more meaningful, more challenging, more exciting, more terrifying in a way. In a way, it's a lot more terrifying, right? Even the idea of being obliterated from existence, as scary as that is, the different things that you and I have experienced that zillions of other people have experienced too, just as that frame of reference of what you think reality is, how what you think the existence is. It literally breaks your mind at different places. The mind literally can't comprehend it, and it's absolutely terrifying. It's terrifying, but it's also real. if that, you know what I mean? Like it's actually when you experience these things, and again, you have the confluence of thousands of other, of the most awakened human beings that humanity has ever produced, and you're experiencing, glimpses of what they're talking about. There's a huge validity to that when it's experienced. And anyway, it's just absolutely incredible. The whole thing, the whole game that we're in is just it's just incredible.
Yeah, what I'm thinking now is I believe in I believe in the value of opening up and sharing, vulnerably experiences and stories, good and bad, because in my life, when that has happened, when I've been brought to those moments of actually sharing from that place of like, I don't know, but isn't this
Yeah.
interesting? Or, taking the time to record a conversation and share it. Like there's a interconnectedness that happens that doesn't need an agenda. It doesn't need like an intention other than just sharing it. And so now I'm kind of getting like meta, with a conversation like this. You and I were at, different places, physically in our age and our relationships, like we're speaking of different experiences, but there's overlap. And then, when I post this conversation, for some, they're very much playing the Monopoly game. There might be like things that they've heard of on the fringe that they might even been like intentionally scared not to
Yeah.
pursue by a religion or a
Yep.
relationship or, a system of control or even just
Yep.
fear, like healthy fear, because that's another thing. Like nobody needs any of this. Like we're all getting the experience that we wanted and signed up for. Um, and I assume that there will be certain other people that are somewhere in their journey and hearing other people talk openly about the not knowing, about the wonder. I'm just thinking like that's got to be valuable too, because I'm not, my intention is not to come onto like a YouTube platform or like a podcast with Refound and be like, hey, we've got it figured out. This is what you need to do. This is what you need to listen to. This is step one. Go blow up your life. Here's a great book to read. It's more just like, holy shit. Like, let's
Yeah.
talk about this. I go to like dinner parties or whatever, and it's like, hey, what do you do? Oh, how's the weather? Oh, did you see what happened in, I don't know, insert any crazy place in the
The
world right
latest
now?
insane piece of
The
news. Yeah.
latest insane piece of news. And like, okay, that's like a world and a paradigm that's happening. And there's all these podcasts that I listen to where, I think it's great content, but it often are these people that are coming on and they've got these like very concrete sets of symbols or experiences or worldviews, and they're just like sharing those as fact. And I think what's interesting to me is to start inviting some of those people in to conversation, but from this ground of like, this is all discovery. It's all
Yeah.
fluid and changing, and there's nothing being prescribed. If anything, it's just like a lens of inquiry that's highly, questioning from a place of genuine curiosity.
Yeah.
And I think that like when I really think about Refound as it being a, a podcast or like a content output, it's like I just want to have conversations that are self-aware enough to ask lines of questions that might be different from what I'm hearing in other
Yeah.
places, but is like lighthearted enough, playful enough, like uh not too tied to itself as being anything important or needed or necessary. I think that's, yeah, kind of what's coming into focus. Because part of this conversation for you and I is like, hey, let's just get together. Let's just record. We always have these conversations. They always leave me feeling like energized or reflective or
Likewise.
fulfilled. And just like putting that out there, it might be one out of 100 people that are like on the same wavelength, but I guess that doesn't matter. That's another big lesson with getting older is I know I have spent so much of my energy trying to make everybody love me and to be, funny or charming or, you know, Kayla says I'm a good schmoozer, which is true. Like I can pretty quickly in a room tell like who's the most interesting person that I could talk to. And, like that's part of my operating system. Um, Yet I don't know where to go from there. Um, Yeah, I guess it's
Well,
just getting back to that, you said it, if one person listens to this and thinks
yeah,
that it's like interesting or unblocking or just like, oh, I'm not alone, like
yeah,
that's such a
not
huge
alone.
thing, then, that to me is far more worthwhile than thinking that I or you or we need to like position as a certain way or like kind of that schmoozer mentality. Like there's no agenda here other than just conversation.
Well, I think that kind of like ties back to the beginning, and like I keep kind of laughing at like the terrible sales pitch joke because
Hmm.
like, but that's because that's real, and that's why it's not the sales pitch is because and also the same thing with like we don't know, nobody knows the enlightened Eckhart's not up there telling you the absolute be all end all of everything. He's speaking from a place of a very deep place in his being and things that he's able to observe and see and you know what I mean that resonate with people because they're by and large uh, accurate to reality, true, whatever word you want to use. Um, but it's not like promising some, you know, same thing here, right? Like it's not like promising some be all end all follow these 10 steps you know, to enlightenment or business success or whatever, because nobody has that. Because if that existed, as soon as people started doing it, it would change. Same thing like like a business opportunity. If there's a business opportunity out there, and by the time you formulate it as business opportunity in the market's going to take that opportunity away because 10 other people are going to do it. And so the principles of that matter, but there's no like perfect, you know, set of steps you can put together. So anyway, yeah, I think just like the honesty and realness about the amount of uncertainty and messiness in a
Messiness.
messiness, man. Oh my God. In this process is just that is honestly like lifts a little burden off myself of all the different ways that I will feel like I'm failing or I'm not doing well enough or I have imposter syndrome or I have whatever it is because this isn't as clean as something that I read about or whatever. When if you went back to what really happened about that clean story you're reading about, I'll bet you anything that it was messy as hell and you're getting a really condensed version of it. So anyway,
Totally.
normalizing that is yeah, I'm
Man,
very
I
much here
even
for
I
that.
I'm aware of this too, that in my early experiences that were like really transformative, I'm aware at this point that when the experiences were happening, I had no idea what was happening. Like it
Yeah,
was like messy, painful, whatever, and it wasn't until like days, months, years later that I created a story around that and
yeah,
almost like mythologized these parts of my life that like now I have this like story to tell. So like the real experience of it is super messy. And I was having this thought while you were talking because one of my intentions, I don't know how to play it out, but like there is such a powerful aspect that you and I talk and we're like bros, right? Like we're guys, we have like enough similarities in our life and story that we can kind of relate on certain things. But there's this whole other body of information and knowledge and experience that I've had with Kayla, and I know that
yeah,
you're having with Allie,
yeah,
and I don't just want to be like two more, middle class white dudes like on the enlightenment train, like, oh yeah, I flew to Costa Rica and did, this holotropic breath work and like, man, like, there's something kind of flimsy about that, I think,
yeah,
if that's all it is. And so I was thinking like, how interesting would it be not only to invite in guests that we want to talk to and just like have conversations with, but how interesting would it be if, for example, I had an episode where it's just me talking to Allie and you had
yeah.
an episode where it's just you talking to Kayla. And it's like, getting those other voices and like perspectives, but even in a way that isn't like aligned like how we would expect them. Because I think, I mean, they could also be like me and Kayla could like have a conversation. You and Allie could have a conversation. But like, how can we take these different set pieces and kind of arrange them in different configurations
Yeah.
for different guests, different topics? So it kind of breaks the mold of just like, two white seekers, or, and it's fine that we're white. But you know what I'm saying? Like,
I get it though.
there's a,
Yeah.
there's a certain like flavor to the content that I see out there because it's only guys like us that have the time and space to like to
Yep.
do this, and it's like not representational of a lot of like the actual wisdom that I've got is from people that would never go out of their way to like put a microphone in front of their mouth and start
Yeah.
talking. So I feel like if there's a process of like curating, it's about getting the microphone in front of progressively more interesting people in configurations that actually take like you and I out of the driver's seat,
Yeah.
and like just setting up these little experiments and like seeing what happens. Like, could this be a platform like that?
I'm definitely here for that. I think it's a great idea.
Cool. I think our homework should be I like kind of the weekly frequency. I think that's a pretty good, if we can keep that up.
Yeah.
And I mean, whether it's Sunday or I think Fridays might be my day off now. But like if we could do one day a week and we just keep saying like, hey, next week let's get together, let's talk, and let's invite this person, or let's try this configuration, or maybe it's just Kayla and Allie talking to each other. Like how awesome would that be? We wouldn't even know what's being said. Like I want those reflections from all of this. Like it really, that's one of the things I've learned too, is like to try and solve your problems when you're stuck in that like seat, like how
Yeah.
can you fix your engine when you're driving your car if you're barreling down the road? You need a mechanic, or you need it takes all of these different reflections and people collectively to help any of us like echolocate or triangulate, who we are, what we're doing. So it'd be kind of fun if as a podcast or a platform, we're just bringing in lots of little connect the dots constellations that we might be central to, but yeah, it's just could be more of an expensive, because I could sit here and I could tell you the same stories of going out in the desert in my 20s and like doing LSD for the first time, and but I know those stories. Like that's not, there's nothing new. There's nothing new in like a rehearsed retelling.
Yeah.
So, like what's the thing that's actually going to put you on your back foot and be like, whoa, I have to like think about this. I have to feel this.
Yeah.
I want to make you
Yeah.
cry.
And also things that are uh, relevant to living life, right? Because those like peak experiences are awesome. I've plenty of my own peak experiences in a lot of different cases. But it's like then you always come back. Like nobody's ever stayed. You know what I mean? Like you always come back. You always come back to this moment. You come back to your life. You come back, and then you have to deal with what's going on. And yeah, so I think the more perspectives from people actively going through that, actively implementing those things in their lives, different backgrounds, different sets of experiences, all kinds of things like that, and then also seeing like where those not just where those are different, but also where those are the same and where those overlap. If people from all different walks of life are coming to the similar or same conclusion or same protocols or same principles or something, that's always especially meaningful to me. So yeah, I'm
Awesome.
for sure with you.
That's our homework is two things. One is I'm going to talk to Kayla, you talk to Allie. I don't even know how the conversation goes, but just like, hey, we're starting to record these refound podcasts, and it's really important to us that we have you know a full perspective shared. If we're telling stories about you guys or gals, like it'd be cool to have you on to like give your own perspective on these things. So anyway, however that conversation goes for you, but I want Kayla to be more involved as a voice and like another lens and whatever. So that's number one. And then number two is to just think of someone that to you is like personally interesting that we can reach out to and just like bring on
Yeah,
and just have like a, you know, a three-way and have a conversation, see what, you know, what comes out of it. I have a couple people that I've been like listening to and I'm curious about. Um,
I got a couple ideas too. Yeah.
yeah. And then yeah, we'll
Yeah.
just do kind of like a weekly radio show that's like who knows who knows what's going to happen next or who's going to be on next or what's going to be talked about.
Cool, man. Sounds good to me.
Would do you think Allie would be into like doing a one-on-one with Kayla?
Um, Maybe. Yeah, I can for sure ask. She's in Italy right now, and then on a work trip, and then we've got um some
Yeah, it
a
could be
Valentine's
it could
trip we're
be
doing. So
yeah, I
yeah, I
mean
was
it
gonna
could
say,
be months
but
months
yeah,
from now.
but sure, yeah,
Cool. I just there's something in me that just like thinks that would be
yeah,
really interesting
for sure. I mean,
and could open it up to like a
she's
wider audience and I think like that it you know it's funny when I look at the demographics on Uncomplication, you know, it's all dudes like us. You know, it's all like, you know,
that's the crypto
28 to
stuff. Yeah,
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 exactly. It's like 28 to like 55, you know, men. And there's nothing wrong with that, but man, like what a small like slit to like look at experience through and
yeah,
like what's important and I don't know. I think there could be some interesting conversations about crypto and finance and like what are we trying to build? You know, what does it even mean to have like security financially? It's been wild like doing this wallpaper job. I've been in all of these extravagant homes that are being built here in Colorado. Like I had no idea. I used to think I knew what a big house was, and now I'm like, holy crap, some of these places. I was in one that had a secret panel in a room, like a bedroom, had a secret wall that opened up. And I've seen a lot of like, you know, the bookcases that open and there's like an office behind it or something. This was a secret panel in a room in a house that's already, I don't even know, 5,000, 8,000 square feet, maybe even more. And this panel opens up. There's a hallway that leads to a vault door that it's like Fort Knox vaults. The door is like, you know, huge, like movie, like Ocean's 11 style, and opens into a room that is the size of my house. Like this huge inner space. I mean, it must be like the entire found, like, I don't even know how this could exist spatially in where this house is located, but, and I'm just thinking to myself, like, you know, who are these people? What do they expect is going to happen? What's going in this room? I mean, is it gold bricks? Is it, you know, weapons and food? Is it like, I don't know, but like my whole point in bringing this up is there's a lens to look at the world through that I think the crypto verse kind of creates where it's like, how do I get my little piece of
yeah.
whatever it is enough that I can survive the chaos that's coming or whatever? And that then becomes the operating system like, oh, this opportunity is going to lead to, you know, making money, being secure, you know, escaping the sinking boat, whatever, like those analogies. Um,
It's kind of amazing because I've found, I mean, the amount of time that I've spent in the cryptoverse and of like you see how bullshit the legacy financial system is, and you see how much bullshit is in crypto, and yet you see how the whole game is rigged, and yet you spend so much time you know what I mean, in the same system trying to like, okay, the whole thing is rigged, so I've got to outsmart the people who are rigging it, and like it's just wild. It's just like such an unfulfilling thing to do. Practical
totally.
sometimes, sure, but like, yeah, I completely agree.
I was actually
Completely
thinking
agree.
about that this morning, I think even is like blockchain is such a transformational technology, like in its
Yeah.
concept and like, you know, decentralizing information and like putting things online that can't be taken down by a central group or like
Yep.
there's something in it
Yep.
that's like so like in the spirit of freedom and personal whatever, but what did people do with it? And maybe this was
Yep.
exactly like the way that, you know, the system co-opted it is like, oh yeah, and you can use it to get ahead in this rotting system. And so now like all of the attention is like We're going to escape the game by playing the game harder.
That's exactly right. We're gonna escape the game by making it worse somehow, sometimes. Like,
By playing it
anyway,
faster.
by
Anyway.
playing it faster, 24/7, nonstop. Um, yeah, it's
And if you win
yeah.
the game, then you can build a huge house as an island with a vault in the basement and hide in there clutching all of your possessions and wondering why like your relationships suck and no one wants to hang out with you.
Yeah. Yep. Couldn't couldn't agree more with that, man. Yeah. God, depressing state of affairs.
Oh,
Oh
well,
man.
I would call that a successful first
I think
fling at the
so.
whatever.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I felt pretty solid.
we could probably land the plane since you know how to do that.
Yeah, man. Yeah. I haven't gotten to fly lately with all the ice. Dude, that ice storm out here was absolutely wild. I've been in
Oh,
a lot of snowstorms. Love snowstorms. This ice storm was absolutely nuts. Um, but yeah,
I
I'm gonna
didn't
try
I
to
didn't
get.
even know that was going on. And so is it
Oh
like,
yeah, man, the whole city was shut down. I should send you some pictures. Like, the whole city was shut
is it the
down.
kind of thing where like, cars are like encased in ice and trees are like that kind of?
Encased in like kind of for a little bit. There was like an inch or two of ice on everything, but like the city's not prepared for it. So there's trees down everywhere, power lines everywhere. We were one of the only houses with power magically. Most of the city lost power. Um, that plane was probably frozen to the frozen to the tarmac.
It's all right.
But
That's
anyway,
a good analogy for what we were just talking about.
yeah.
It's like you think you can
So
control everything, but your
yeah, and then
plane
an
might
ice
be
storm
frozen to the
happens.
tarmac.
So
Totally.
man,
All right, man. Well, that was fun.
yeah, I had a great time, man.
So next time, same bat time, same bat channel.
Sounds good to me, man. I think yeah, I'm free next Sunday morning, I think. So yeah, same time works.
Cool. All right, well, I'm gonna hit the stop button, but for anyone listening, good luck.
See you next week.
See you next week.